Well, let's start out the walk from Largo, Argentina, which is an unusual collection of 4 ancient temples right in the middle of the busy streets. Its temple complex was only discovered during the 1930s when a construction project uncovered them. And then we took a look inside the Church of Il Gesù, which is the mother church of the Jesuit order, with an interior that will really pop your eyes with its splendor. This is Italian Baroque at its most extreme, with every square inch decorated in marble, gold, and painted fresco. They were all added about a century after the building was constructed in the late 1500s. And then stepping back out onto the streets of Rome to continue our walking tour, have a look at these cobblestones under construction.
Observing these 3 hard-working guys and the street scene of a scooter riding right into a palatial building is really a slice of Rome at its best. The ordinary daily life of the people. That's something that we love to see when we're out traveling, not just the tourist highlights.
They're long rocks and they just plant them in wet sand. There's no asphalt involved at all. And the heart of Rome is entirely paved in those cobblestones.
Observe these 3 guys. One of them is putting the stones down, and this fellow is removing the temporary asphalt patch. Sometimes you might notice on the cobble lanes there's some asphalt. Well, it's usually just a temporary patch like this, which they will soon get around to removing very skillfully and replacing with the genuine cobblestones.
Walking a block to one of the most beautiful fountains, the Fountain of the Turtles, in the Piazza Mattei, one of the cute little places. It's in the Jewish district in Rome, into the neighborhood called the Ghetto. No, it's not a slum, but it's the historic section where Rome's Jews lived during the Middle Ages. It still retains a medieval feeling that's so typical of the many hidden nooks and crannies of the city. Narrow cobbled alleys lead from one little crooked space to another. A palace here, a church there.
And always the restaurants. Here we're in front of Gighetto, one of the great eateries, and with piles of artichokes being brought in. Those are for deep frying Jewish style in the great Roman tradition.
Walk towards the Portico of Octavia. It was built by Rome's greatest emperor, Augustus, as part of a large complex that has now been reduced to some columns and a facade and fragments, which have actually been restored and renovated very nicely, and well worth a visit to the Portico of Octavia.
Portico of Octavia is one of those amazing ancient ruins that pops up right in the middle of the city, still standing tall, looking good 2,000 years later. As usual, most of the original structure is gone, so use your imagination to visualize the extent of the original complex. Continue along next door with a visit to Teatro di Marcello, or Theater of Marcellus. It's right past the Portico of Octavia.
From Teatro Marcello, we walk up to the Capitoline Hill. There's kind of a secret terrace up on the Capitoline that gives you a magnificent view looking out across the city. This terrace, of course, is a great place to take a lot of photos, get magnificent views of the domes of the churches, and put yourself in the picture, get a friend to snap it for you.
Pretty amusing to watch these fellows lift this seemingly very heavy stone column capitol, but it was just a display piece as we continue on our way across the Capitoline Square.
When you get thirsty in Rome, you don't have to buy bottled water. You can use one of the street fountains. The ancient Imperial Forum is just one of the greatest sights in the world. This is where the Romans gathered 2,000 years ago for business, for gossip, politics, shopping, and just hanging out, just being here. It was the center of town. You walk the smooth paving stones of the Via Sacra from one end to the other, covering about a half a mile lined with marble ruins.
Getting hungry, we walk back over towards Campo dei Fiori for an excellent lunch at the back of this gourmet deli. The Roscioli brothers have a wonderful small gourmet restaurant right on Via Giubanari. It's a deli out front and a great dining room in the back.
A typical deli here, wine shop and deli, cheeses and cold cuts and meats on Via Giubanari.
And we're making our way across town over past the Aurelian walls and having a stroll briefly along the Via Veneto, one of the grand lanes, and then passing the U.S. Embassy, pick up some cash at one of the ubiquitous machines.
We're going to bring you to one of the artistic hideaways in the city. Focal point of our visit is the Ecstasy of Teresa. And then by all means go another block and have a look at the Baths of Diocletian that was converted by Michelangelo into the Church of Santa Maria degli Angeli. It was an original Roman bathhouse from almost 2,000 years ago, and Michelangelo came in and redesigned it in the Renaissance and put the beautiful colored marbles in place. You could walk 2 blocks over to Via Nazionale, a very busy shopping street.
And down at the bottom you find the ancient Trajan's Market and Trajan's Column.